So what kind of a bum is he then?
That's what I've been asking, buddy. Pass me that chair, will you? Those two chairs are the old man's bed. I just paced off 12 feet across the room. This will be the bedroom door.
Oh, that's crazy. You can't recreate a thing like that.
I would like to see it. 43 feet. I'll pace over that wall and back again.
Look, this is absolutely insane. What are you wasting everybody's time in here for?
Look, according to you, it'll only take 15 seconds. Now, we can spare that, see?
Come on, knock it off.
A travelling salesman walks past a field and he sees a white tarp draped over a log and he mistakes it for a cow. Then, up the road, he finds a farmer running around looking for his missing cow, and the salesman points to where he saw the tarp draped over a log. The farmer thanks him and runs to that field, where he finds his missing cow, behind the tarp, where the salesman couldn't see. So, was the salesman correct when he gave the right answer for the wrong reason? Does it even matter? I just watched the 1957 version of 12 Angry Men, and it's very easily become one of my favourite movies of all time. It's a story about a murder trial. A man has been found stabbed to death after an argument with his son, who had screamed, "I'm going to kill you." He was stabbed by the same kind of knife the son had bought earlier. No other suspects are mentioned, and 2 witnesses testify that it was the son who did it. If the son is convicted, he will be sentenced to execution by electric chair. The son says he stormed out and he was at the movies when it happened, but when he was interviewed by police, he couldn't remember which movies he'd seen. He'd also lost his knife. The son is guilty, but one juror refuses to agree to a guilty vote until the other jurors at least talk about it, argue what they feel is obvious. They even argue that there's anything to argue at all. In short, 12 people are locked in a room together and told to decide whether an 18-year-old boy lives or dies. It's a story about justice. It's such a work of love by the writer. 12 characters and only one location is a very difficult piece to make interesting, and even more, the stakes are external to the characters. None of them have any personal investment in the life of the boy. The stakes only come down to personal prejudice and ethics. There are 2 things that make this movie so profound to me. For starters, the first juror to decide he'll vote not guilty doesn't even believe it himself, not yet. He just wants to talk about it. Everyone else wants to go home. He stands against the force of 11 other men yelling at him because of his conviction in taking this seriously and not in his conviction that the boy is innocent. The second thing? By the end of the movie, they all vote not guilty. But they never prove him innocent. They have no theories about what actually happened that night. The evidence against the boy is circumstantial, but there's so much of it that it's very likely that he actually was guilty. They may have let a murderer go free. And the movie compels us to understand that that was real justice. The idea that the boy, this is the only name we get for the person who might or might not be a killer, most of the jurors don't get names either. The idea that he was probably guilty isn't new. The AV Club has a piece, Did 12 Angry Men Get It Wrong?, comparing the movie to the O.J. Simpson trial and noting we find it heroic when we see it in film, but injustice in real life. The author of the AV Club piece, Mike D'Angelo, points out the facts of the case as it's presented in the movie. While the neighbour who claims to have seen the boy commit the crime is discredited and the downstairs neighbour's testimony can be thrown out completely, it doesn't change the other facts. The boy still has motive, no knife, and no alibi. As Mike D'Angelo puts it, for all the evidence to have pointed the same direction and all of it to be wrong is incredibly unlikely. And I agree with that. The writer of 12 Angry Men, Reginald Rose, apparently intended for the boy to be innocent, but in this case, as it wraps up, really it does seem to come down to the facts still pointing to his guilt. And if it pleases the court, I'd like to invoke death of the author here. I do like to think that the boy is guilty, but I disagree with D'Angelo because I don't think the jury got it wrong. And I also disagree with his comparison to O.J. Simpson. The point of the AV Club article is that O.J. Simpson was also acquitted due to the evidence being largely circumstantial, which is what happened in 12 Angry Men. But I think the comparison ignores an important piece of context that 12 Angry Men is very clear in addressing. One of the most important details of the story that's brought up, time and time again, is why the jury have to make these arguments amongst themselves. Time and time again, it's asked, why didn't the public defender handle the case better? Why didn't the public defender point this out? And time again, the answer is just an uncomfortable shrug. The boy had an overworked, undermotivated public defender. The public defender didn't even have to believe his own client. The injustice we feel about the O.J. Simpson trial is that he didn't have a public defender. he had a very expensive, very famous, and very powerful legal team to defend him. And that got him an innocent verdict where a poorer man would definitely have been found guilty. The problem with the OJ trial then is not that he was found not guilty, it's the way he was found not guilty. He could afford 11 of the best lawyers in the country. DeAngelo only compares the conclusions of these trials, not the process. How the answer was reached was more important in both the O.J. Simpson trial and to this movie's audience than that the answer was the same. So let's cut back to the fact that, yeah, the boy in 12 Angry Men probably was guilty. Maybe someone else took the kid's knife to stab the dad, but that still leaves you without a suspect. There are too many coincidences happening at the same time. And again, I don't think this means that the 12 Angry Men got it wrong. They even say so themselves.
Gambling on probabilities, we may be wrong. We may be trying to let a guilty man go free, I don't know.
Because what they prove at the end is that according to the evidence they have, he's not definitely guilty. And that decision, I think, is far more significant, is more of a statement, if the boy actually did do it. This might be a controversial statement, but I would have, and I believe you should have, also voted not guilty. I talked about this with a friend who's studying to be a judge. When I brought this up with him, he said that this could be taken as a criticism of the concept of reasonable doubt. Because of how this works, they probably did let a murderer go free. To which I said I took it as the opposite. It justified the need for reasonable doubt when, through the whole movie, the stakes were an execution of an 18-year-old boy if they all agreed on guilty. And we agreed, yeah, that's what it came down to, isn't it? And when you look at it like that, you understand why the concept of reasonable doubt is so important. Voting guilty when he's innocent is worse than voting innocent when he's guilty. And we've made such a harsh, retributive justice system that the consequences of inflicting it on an innocent person are abhorrent, horrific. So much so that we feel that we shouldn't use it unless we're certain. And 12 Angry Men proves that a lot of the time we can be certain for terrible reasons or just outright prejudice. If the boy was actually innocent, then the reason they can't know he's guilty is obvious. It's not what happened, it's not true. They're just correct. But if he's actually guilty, then it's a more powerful statement to refuse to convict based on their uncertainty. I think that would be a good conclusion, but there's a problem with this idea. If he was guilty, it kind of means that the people who judged by their gut that he was guilty were right, doesn't it? The jurors that assumed he did it because he wasn't white or because he was poor, does that mean that their prejudice was right in the end? If he actually did do it, were they right to be prejudiced? But then, we get back to the travelling salesman, the farmer and the cow. This is known as the Gettier problem. It's a rewording of a question asked by the philosopher Edmund Gettier to show how getting to the right answer doesn't mean you're right. It doesn't mean you know something. The salesman pointed to where he had seen a tarp. We know he was wrong, even though the cow was there. We can't say that the angry men who voted guilty out of prejudice were right, even if the boy did do it. What they believed was that there was no reasonable doubt that the boy murdered his father because of his race, or that there was no reasonable doubt that the boy murdered his father because he was in a slum. And because of that, they weren't convincing to the other jurors. The original writer of 12 Angry Men really did intend for the boy to be innocent, I think, because it proves that the racist and the prejudiced people were wrong. But I think the story is more powerful if we accept that, even if the boy did do it, we know they were wrong anyway.
I don't understand you people. I mean, all these picky little points you keep bringing up, they don't mean nothing. You saw this kid just like I did. You're not going to tell me you believe that phony story about losing the knife and that business about being at the movies? Look, you know how these people lie? It's born in them. I mean, what the heck? I don't have to tell you. They don't know what the truth is. And let me tell you, they don't need any real big reason to kill someone either. No, sir. They get drunk. Oh, they're real big drinkers, all of them. You know that. And bang, someone's lying in the gutter. Well, nobody's blaming them for it. That's the way they are, by nature. You know what I mean? Violent. Where are you going? Human life don't mean as much to them as it does to us. Look, they're lushing it up and fighting all the time. And if somebody gets killed, so somebody gets killed, they don't care. Oh, sure, there's some good things about them, too. Look, I'm the first one to say that. I've known a couple who were okay, but that's the exception, you know what I mean? Most of them, it's like they have no feelings. They can do anything. What's going on here? I'm trying to tell you. You're making a big mistake, you people. This kid is a liar. I know it. I know all about them. Listen to me. They're no good. There's not a one of them who's any good. I mean, what's happening in here? I'm speaking my piece, and you... Listen to me. We're this kid on trial here. His type. Well, don't you know about them? There's a danger here. These people are dangerous. They're wild. Listen to me. Listen to me.
I have. Now sit down and don't open your mouth again.
Hey, if you liked that, I do have a Patreon which I'm going to be using to try to produce some original film work when the global situation's a bit better. I also write essays at wholesomerage.com. A special thank you and a shout out to Baxel, Elizabeth Fuller, Comrade Penny, Emlyn Costello, Ethan Cheng, Fen, Hartshine, Ian Robert Darling Burns, Patrick Mead, Regidar, Southpaw, Undomed Tinway, and Wistel for their support in making video content like this possible. Thanks.